Hello, Internet. It is time for yet another Wednesday's serial. If you have a keen eye, you might notice some subtle difference. But I'm just gonna jump into this week's comics. First up is Silver Surfer. This is a legit new #1, which has been a thing recently for some. I mean, I actually feel the #1 here fits the cover. But, this is Dan Slott writing differently than I've seen him ever really write before, and Mike Allred coming in doing the art, which Allred's never been my favorite. It works for this title, but I can't help but feel like there was a number of other talents that would have made this more exciting. But a lot of this focuses on Dawn, who's very much a homegirl. She loves where she lives, and she feels it's the best place on Earth, and yeah. And she has her sister, Eve, who is a world traveler, and so you kind of already get that plum wine. You get the juxtaposition of that going on, and I think that's a good way to kind of mix it up. What's interesting, though, is the Silver Surfer is very briefly a part of this, and Dan Slott finds a good way to give some exposition about the character without delving too much in, but I feel like if you were wholly unaware of the Silver Surfer, you'd still be kind of lost as to who he is, and if you didn't know about Galactus and all that, it would kind of not make a lot of sense, but I can't imagine too many people are wholly unfamiliar with that at this point. But there's some interesting stuff, and you can see Allred does some cool stuff. His layouts aren't particularly impressive, but he has some cool stuff, and especially in this impossible place. And he plays it up, and the simplicity of the Silver Surfer design works well with whatnot, and it works well. The colors are very muted, and because of all that look, it doesn't feel like a spacefaring adventure as much as it just feels kind of like a wacky adventure. And it's really easy to see here where Dan Slott's a huge Doctor Who fan. You can already draw the parallels. This girl's clearly supposed to basically be the companion sort of character, and you get a sense of Silver Surfer going around and helping people, but knowing he can never fully atone for his sins. But the biggest thing about this popped out to me is that I've never been a big Silver Surfer fan, because I find the Silver Surfer kind of inherently a boring character, because yeah, he's kind of a tortured soul or whatever, but he kind of also just has this power cosmic, which, it's not that he's so powerful, but it's that it's such an undefined power, he can just kind of do whatever. But that kind of works with the Doctor Who thing, and I feel like with the adding in of Dawn and this, also this kind of adventure he needs to go on, and that he's going to be the hero of these people against this enemy, it might provide enough. I'm wondering if that's only going to last the initial arc, or if that's going to really be kind of the run for a while. So I'm hoping it continues to be interesting. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep picking up in issues, because my store is having this at $2.99. I thought I'd give it a shot. I think it's interesting, but I'm not hooked enough to say that it wouldn't be worth waiting for a trade. That's my take, though. I have a feeling a lot of people would enjoy this comic a lot more than I personally did, just because I have such a aversion to the Silver Surfer coming into this comic before I even picked it up. And nothing in here really turned that enough around for me, but I have a feeling this is going to have more to offer, but the first issue didn't necessarily bring it all to the table. So, there you go. Next up is Deadpool 26, and pulling back, I kind of... Wow, we're 26 issues in. That's crazy. Kind of an interesting Noto cover. This issue is another one of the flashback issues, and we see Deadpool kind of showing up, but he's more serious than normal at first, which is kind of a weird tonal shift, even though it shouldn't be. This whole story is about Deadpool going back in time to deal with Hitler, who had traveled to the future to come back to the past, but not relative to him, in this giant mecha machine to try to take out Nick Fury. And it's just this whole thing. And then Cable gets involved, and Cable has his own mech. And it's just this whole bizarre, crazy story. And they keep building with bad Hitler jokes and kind of some bad time travel stuff. It's a fun issue. There's been better, there's been worse, but it ties into this little, like, aside back pull issue stuff they've been doing. And what's really interesting about it is it's printed in that faux old comic looking way, so there's kind of a grain put over all the art and even the white part, so it looks more oxygenated like the old paper stock used to be, and the colors are obviously more muted to show less of a color palette. It's interesting. It's kind of a fun pickup, and if you get a kick out of, you know, all the old weird World War II stuff, and if you're going to get a kick out of a few Hitler jokes, this would be a fun issue, but it really is just a gag in the way that a lot of people assume Deadpool comics are just gag comics. This issue is that. I'm going to be curious to see how the next issue goes, the big $10 extravaganza where supposedly gets married. I'm hoping they at least address in the next one that Deadpool's been married before, because that's a really big part of his continuity. And if they just gloss over it, that would kind of hurt at this point. So, yeah. If you're kind of just looking for a fun issue, I'd actually recommend picking this one up on its own merits, because it is just kind of a weird, fun aside. And just something crazy and cool and not relating to anything else. Yeah, and but it isn't necessarily the best representative of what Deadpool's all about, blah, 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 but fun issue. So it's another issue of Hawkeye. We're not dealing with Clint and the huge cliffhanger we had now 2 issues ago, which is just getting irritating. But this is dealing with Kate Bishop and seeing that Madame Mask's machinations are part of what's making LA hell, which is weird because I thought she was out. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting issue, but this also seems like a weaker one, especially compared to the last good one, but it's certainly better than the just FU issue that the prior issue was. So, I don't know. Hawkeye certainly isn't as strong as it once was, but I'm kind of curious to see how all these threads come together, and once the threads do, if we get something stronger as a result for this kind of time apart, if you will. Deadly Class 3, I can't believe this is only 3 issues in, it feels like so much more. And a nice little touch, they have a 1987 on the cover, I thought that was fun. Here we see a lot more of teenage angst and some stuff that would normally pull me out of a comic, but the way that it's so, like, socially devoid, and truly socially devoid, not just the way teenagers are, really sets our characters apart, and seeing how they deal with some of the homeless life and building up on whether or not they kind of belong there or not, I think is really interesting. This is the first issue that feels kind of more down on the street, which I like, and a bit more away from the Harry Potter aspect. I was hoping to get a little more of that before he pulled away, but I'm curious to see how it goes, especially now that we are away from it. It feels like we will be next issue, if when we come back to that more academy area, to see whether or not our characters get not only crap from the other kids, like they're obviously going to, but how the faculty might crack down on them or not, depending on their actions. Just because I'm kind of curious to see kind of not only the moral code, but kind of the power standing and how reined in these kids are supposed to be that are supposed to be assassins when they grow up. It's kind of an interesting thing, and not knowing that sort of thing initially is part of what makes this so exciting, reading this month to month. Snyder Murphy, The Wake. Interesting comic. I have to say, these covers being like half just you know, this is getting kind of old. But I don't know, what's been interesting for me is the first chunk of the Wake was so kind of like science fiction, but I mean like really there and playing with some kind of important ecological discussion in entertainment form, and almost maybe a little too heady at times to really even be considered plot, and more of like almost preachy, I'd say. Yeah. And now that we're past that one part, we're so far in, it's not even science fiction anymore. Like, this is bizarre, like Waterworld pirate fantasy going on, and it's fun, but it's in such a different world, and we haven't really had a chance to get any grounding in it, I don't feel. So it just feels like we're being washed from one scene to the next, and it's fascinating and it's interesting. I just feel that maybe the pace is a bit off. Like, we needed maybe like half an issue less of that original point and half an issue more in this crazy new world with all these new characters, some of which are legit pirates, some of them that are just like legit marauders, and it's like, what's going on? Who are these people kind of loyal to? Because it's clear that they're not just doing whatever they're doing out for their own good, even though they're doing whatever they're doing in their own self-interests. There's clearly some structure going on. There's some sort of a failing society, but how that's working, I'm not necessarily fully grasping. And I feel like that's so key to what's going on. So I'm enjoying it, but I feel like I'll be lost. But I'm waiting for this to end so that I can go through and maybe slow down and enjoy this for hopefully the work that it will turn out to be. Because I'm really hoping this turns out to be a really strong entry as far as a Neo Vertigo landscape. Because it would be nice to have Vertigo back in some respect, as it were. So it was not the biggest week for me, but I hope you all enjoyed my reviews. I can't wait to see some of yours. Please hit me up with the likes, comments, and subscribe and all that shiz. But please, no, really, let me know what you thought. And please, if you read Silver Surfer, let me know what you thought about that book. I'm really curious about other people's impressions, because I'm wondering if there's kind of a different mindscape on that, because I feel like it's so close to something I enjoy, but just the way it's being handled isn't speaking to me fully. So, awesome. You guys have a good one. Peace.